Okay, what if you could bottle sunshine? No, I'm serious. What if you could literally capture the sun's massive heat, keep it on standby for hours, and then use it to power entire cities long after the sun is set? Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, it's real, and it's a total game changer for solar power. So let's dive in.
It's the most basic question for solar energy, but it's also the biggest hurdle. The sun is an incredible, almost limitless source of clean power, right? But its biggest weakness, its Achilles heel, has always been, well, what happens at night?
For your standard solar panels, the answer is pretty simple. They just stop working. And that's the core problem, right? Those traditional panels are great during the day, but as soon as it gets dark or even just cloudy, their output plummets to zero. This is called intermittency, and it's the one big thing that's always held solar back from being a power source you can count on, 24/7.
So the real goal, the holy grail for any power grid, is what we call dispatchable energy. It's a fancy term, but all it means is power on demand. It's the ability to flip a switch and just know the lights will turn on, day or night, rain or shine. Traditional power plants have this. It's that reliability that renewables have to match if they're going to power our future.
And that right there, that's the huge leap we're talking about. We're moving from a power source that's basically at the mercy of the sun's schedule to one that can deliver power whenever we demand it. So the big question is, how on earth does this technology pull that off?
Well, the answer is something that, again, sounds like it's straight out of a movie. A battery made of salt. But here's the twist. It doesn't store electricity like a normal battery. Oh no. It stores something way more basic, more elemental. Pure, raw heat.
And that is the absolute key. See, instead of turning sunlight straight into electricity, this tech is all about capturing the sun's intense heat. It literally bottles the warmth of the sun, ready to be opened up and used whenever we need it, even hours later. So what do these places actually look like? Picture this. You've got three main parts. First, a massive field of thousands of mirrors, all tracking the sun, acting like one giant focused magnifying glass. Second, you have this towering structure in the middle that all the mirrors are pointed at. And third, this is the real secret sauce, a special mix of salts. Why salt? Because it's amazing at holding on to an incredible amount of heat, and crucially, it stays liquid.
Okay, so we've got the pieces, mirrors, a tower, and a whole lot of molten salt. But how does all that actually come together to create a power plant that can run around the clock? It's actually a really elegant process.
All right, here's how it works. You have these thousands of mirrors. They're called heliostats, and they all track the sun, focusing all that sunlight onto one spot on the tower. This makes the receiver on the tower get incredibly hot. Then, we pump the molten salt up into the receiver where it soaks up all that intense heat. This charged, hot salt then goes into a massive insulated storage tank. Basically, we're charging a giant thermal battery. And here's the magic. Whenever we need electricity, we just take that superheated salt from the tank, use its heat to boil water into steam, and that steam spins a turbine. Just like a classic power plant, but without burning a single drop of fossil fuel. Zero emissions. And when I say hot, I mean really hot. We're talking about the molten salt reaching temperatures over 500 degrees Celsius. That's more than 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That intense heat is exactly what makes the whole system so incredibly good at making the steam needed to generate power.
Now, here's the really crucial part. Those insulated tanks can store enough of this superheated salt to run the power plant at full blast for up to 12 hours with absolutely no sunlight. That's the game changer. That's what bridges the gap between day and night. And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, these central towers are absolute giants. We're talking over 200 meters tall. To put that in perspective, that's taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza. They have to be that tall to catch all the light from that huge field of mirrors. Okay, so we have this incredible, massive technology, but where in the world does it make the most sense? Well, for a perfect example, let's look at a place with two key ingredients: tons of sunshine and a really unique economic situation. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia. So here's the big strategic problem for the kingdom. Right now, a huge chunk of the oil they pump out of the ground, they just burn it themselves to generate their own electricity. Think about that. That's a massive amount of valuable oil that could be sold abroad, and that revenue is literally going up in smoke. And this is exactly why molten salt technology is such a huge part of the kingdom's Vision 2030 plan. It lets them use their biggest natural resource, all that intense desert sunlight, to free up their most valuable economic resource, oil, for export. And the real kicker? It provides reliable power in the evening.
That's when demand for air conditioning skyrockets, and it's also exactly when traditional solar panels have already called it a day.
And okay, beyond the money, the environmental difference is just staggering. An oil-fired power plant pumps out around 750 grams of CO2 for every single kilowatt hour. The molten salt solar tower? Less than 10. That's not just a little better, that's a whole different universe of clean energy.
Yeah, do the math on that. That is a reduction of over 98%. This isn't just a small step forward. It's a complete transformation of what's possible.
And look, I want to be really clear about this. This is not some far-off, futuristic dream. This technology is here, it's mature, it's proven, and it's already working at a massive scale in countries all over the world.
The proof is in the pudding, as they say. In Spain, one of these plants ran for 36 days straight, 24/7, proving just how reliable it is. In Morocco, the giant Noor complex has shown it can handle the tough conditions of the Sahara Desert. And over in the UAE, they now have the world's tallest solar tower. The verdict is already in, folks. This stuff works.
So it all comes back to that very first question we asked. What happens when the sun goes down? Well, for this technology, the answer couldn't be clearer. It just keeps on working.
And there you have it. We've come full circle. Solar's biggest problem was always that the sun sets. That's intermittency. But by capturing the sun's energy as storable heat instead of just instant electricity, this technology has finally cracked the code.
What you get in the end is the holy grail we talked about. Power that's clean, totally reliable, and on demand. In other words, it's solar power that works on your schedule, not the sun's.
This tech really does change the entire game for solar. And it leaves you with a pretty big question to think about. If we can now literally bottle the sun, what other impossible challenges are we going to solve next?